Ladies, gentlemen, and bowlers from around the world, welcome to the Kegel Show. My name is Don Agent, and I'll be your host for this week's episode. We are very excited to have with us today Katie Thornton. Katie,
hello.
Thank you for coming out.
Absolutely.
We're talking bowler, businesswoman, and coach. I normally don't start out this way, but I've got to ask this question. Your resume is quite impressive. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I just turned 28.
You have a resume that would a lot of people, it would take a half of a lifetime, if not a full lifetime, to achieve. I want to read off a few things for the audience, just to toot your horn a little bit, and obviously there's some personal motive here as well with your relationship with us and Weber and as a family. USBC silver level coach, also in charge of seminars and education for USA Bowling, essentially. You were part of the 2009 inaugural Weber women's bowling team.
I was.
From 2010 to 2013, you were on that team and helped them secure 3 national championships. Is that correct? You were also
we won 3.
2013 NAIA Player of the Year.
Yep.
That's the start. 2014, you graduated.
I did.
But then you were also assistant coaching at Weber.
I did for the last year. I finished up my master's degree at Weber during that year, so I stayed on and kind of helped in an assistant role, and the women won the NAIA championship that year as well.
You've got a master's in international business and a bachelor's essentially in sports management.
Yep.
Okay. 2015, you moved to Savannah, Georgia.
I did.
And you didn't take over a program. I think you're going to elaborate. You actually started the bowling program.
From the very beginning, from the first recruit to where we're at now. So from the very beginning, scratch. Literally didn't even know where we were practicing. So.
And that is Savannah's College of Arts and Design, correct?
Savannah College of Art and Design. Better known as SCAD to most of the world, I guess.
What's ironic is you end up double hitting because you are coach for the men's and the women's team, essentially.
Yep.
And 2018, you were voted NAIA Men's Coach of the Year.
I was, yes.
That's just a small piece, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, I mean, seriously, that's a lot to accomplish in 10 years. So I want to get right to it. What got you involved in bowling, and what got you hooked?
So growing up, I'm from the Virginia, Hampton Roads area. I grew up, it's kind of a large number of bowling centers in that area. And I actually grew up playing softball. My dad was a huge baseball guy, so that was kind of my go-to. And I was always the type of kid that I had to be doing something all the time. And during the summer, I was getting bored, and the bowling center about 5-10 minutes away from my house had all you can bowl for $5 for 3 or 4 hours every day for the summer. Nice. And I was bored, and my grandma took me, and I ended up kind of liking it a lot more than I thought. And the guy who worked in the pro shop was like, "Oh, you have a little bit of talent for somebody who never actually does it." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I joined a league in the fall, and the rest was it. I was hooked at that point. I mean, it just turned out I was, I guess, a little bit naturally gifted at it to a certain extent. So it just kind of caught on, and that was it, and it just went from there.
There's actually, it's interesting, there's some similarities between you and I's story, because I actually started off, my go-to sport was baseball. Problem was, as I got older, I didn't like people throwing things at me. So I decided I'd get into something where I could throw, at something else, and same thing, I got hooked in bowling as soon as I got involved. Okay, let's go with, obviously, you've got a pretty competitive background. You've also got a lot on your plate.
Yeah.
Do you still have the opportunities to compete much?
I do have the opportunity to get to compete a decent amount. I don't bowl on the tour like Verity does in a sense, or some of the other girls that I got to bowl with at Weber. I definitely have always kind of leaned to more of the passion for the coaching side and the more technical side of things, and that's just kind of how I've naturally been my whole life. Not that I don't enjoy it, but I don't find it to be as much fun by myself a lot of the time. So I don't really, take as much time to prepare in that sense. But I still get to bowl a couple PWBA events every year. I'll be bowling Queens this year, the Women's Open Championship, things like that. So I get enough dabble into the competitive side to keep at it, but I also am your typical league bowler too. So
there's nothing wrong with that.
I get a little bit of both.
I gave a seminar today to a group that you had brought down, men's and women's team. Just wonderful, wonderful group of people. Had some great questions. And one of them asked me, they said, when did we get to see you bowl? I said, ironically enough, I just started again 2 weeks ago. I went out to USBCs to compete. I wouldn't necessarily call it competition on my end, but felt better, drilled a little bit lighter ball, and hopefully I'll be back in the mix.
There you go.
What is it about college bowling that appealed to you as a player?
It's just so much fun. It was fun. There's so many good memories in terms of not only the competitiveness, but at the same time, like you could have for the 15-minute span that you're bowling in a game against this in a match, and then the second it's over, it's like you're friends with the people on the other team, and it's just so different than what you get to experience in a lot of other cases. And there's what you get to bowl on and what you get to experience, just pattern-wise, everything, the competitiveness. For me, I'm an intense person, so the intensity and my ability to actually not be so frowned upon, I guess. So you get to come back and you get to give those really hard high fives and things like that, and get in each other's faces and be like, all right, we're motivating each other right now. That's totally my personality, and that's kind of how it made it feel like it was kind of home for me. And in that regard, it was just this is fun. This is really enjoyable for me from the competitive sense, and that's, I think, really what appealed to me the most and really kept me so passionate about it during that time frame and even now.
All right, so let's go back to those 4 years where you were competing with a pretty elite team here.
I was.
Okay? We had some pretty intense talent that came out on that circuit, not just internally, but externally. Yep. Can you give us a little bit of feedback about what that experience was like and some of the people you were competing against that you've now become friends with today?
Absolutely.
Obviously.
Yeah. I got the privilege. I would definitely call it a privilege at this point. I got to bowl with Diana Z.
Solid.
I would pronounce her last name, but then she'll probably tell me that I pronounced it wrong. So, I was a senior when Daria and Verity came in. So I also got to bowl a little bit with them, not as much as Diana. She was a year younger than I am. The first year, I was with Ashley Galante, Stephanie, a lot of really big international players that had bowled for the national team. I'm trying to think, I'm probably forgetting somebody, but a lot of just really good bowlers, not just from the United States, but all around the world. And obviously people probably recognize a lot of those names. And just, I'm still friends with them until today. And it's interesting to kind of see them out on tour now. Yeah. Because I always think of them in the capacity of, especially Diana, because we were, a lot of the time, when it came down to us bowling, a lot of the time in the lineup, it was most of the time the two of us kind of together in a sense. So we always kind of really fed off of each other in terms of energy and things like that. And it's very interesting to watch her on the tour and things like that, and just to see a small glimpse of it. I actually got to cross with her one time at a PWBA event last year that I bowled in, and it was kind of for a little bit. I was like, all right, we would have those chats and be like, all right, it's all right. You're gonna make it happen. It's gonna happen. So it was so enjoyable, and it's so cool to see them excelling on that level now. And we all do different things, but it's cool. It's very cool to see them, and you know, it's I mean,
family.
It is.
It's every one of those
Yeah.
women you mentioned.
You know.
I know personally, and just a wonderful, wonderful group of people. All of
It
you,
is.
we're just very, very proud of you here, and I'm sure across the globe everyone is as well. What are some of the favorite things for you about coaching at the college level?
Oh, I would have to say my favorite part is kind of being able to see is a lot of the times you come in with a lot of like rawness in terms of like talent, or you get a lot of players that maybe are at those like potential type of players, and you kind of get to see them go through those like phases and become that like competitive bowler and like have things click, and like you ultimately kind of get to be a small part. And I mean, you kind of ask them sometimes like, what's your dream? Or I want to win a national championship, I want to be a pro, or whatever. And you just get to be like a small part in that, and it's so rewarding when you get to see it with individuals and things like that. You know, I mean, you get to establish really good relationships with them, and you know, sometimes you realize that you're one of the most important role models that they'll have their entire life.
I was going to say, it sounds like you're explaining mentorship here,
Yeah.
essentially, great mentoring.
Yeah, that's what's so rewarding from the coaching standpoint is, you know, like we can teach them everything about physical game and technology and all these things, but ultimately, like, we're getting to, and I get to on a daily basis, get to be a small step for them achieving something, a pinnacle in their life, whether that being graduating, getting a job, is it bowling on tour, might be a combination of both, any of those things. And that's what kind of gets you going every single like day, is if you think about that, it's pretty awesome.
It's inevitable that at some point one of your students, I imagine, will become a coach. And that'll probably be a pretty
we'll see when that
rewarding
happens.
thing too, as well.
Also, I wonder how Randy feels about that.
Let's jump into, honestly, about SCAD. Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, obviously that program did not exist. And tell us about Savannah in general, you know.
Yeah, so we started about 3 years ago. We're currently in our third season. And I ended up getting that position. It happened to be, so the way the other sports work at our university, they compete in a conference, and our conference, for those, happened to be in the same conference as Weber. And actually, the way I kind of found out about the job is one of my professors at Weber is actually the eligibility chair for the conference.
Oh, cool.
So she kind of knew that SCAD was looking to start a bowling program, going to be hiring a coach, knew the athletic director, and
That's great.
It just happened from there. It's definitely a unique school. It's definitely not for everyone, but at the same time, we have so many different offerings in terms of a lot of people they'll get the premise of art and design, like, okay, so you paint and you draw, that's it, fine, like, and it's so much more than that. The technology behind everything, film, whatever, and there's just so many different things. We've had nothing but like great support from the university in regards. We have a great place to practice at in that regard and things like that. So that's made it so much easier for my job and getting things started. But Savannah is also such a great town, and so it's very historical.
So what's your favorite part about that? Is it food? Is it the historical part? Is it
a combination of it's like super cultural.
Okay.
There's so many different things to do. It's different every week in terms of like different events, and you know, and then you're about 15-20 minutes from the beach if you wanted to go that route as well. It's the one of the most haunted cities in America.
Really?
Actually. So you'll see like ghost tours going on at night. So they have like these hearse tours. So they have people sitting in hearse and they like go
Too cool.
and they'll be doing a ghost tour. But they do all sorts of like tours in that regard because there's just a lot of history there as well. And they have one of the old forts from, I think, like World War I, World War II. It's actually out on the road that goes out towards Tybee Island, which is the beach. So just a lot of different cultural things. Very in touch with that.
Now, we touched a little bit on Verity, but, you know, obviously I heard you brought her on board. Can you kind of tell the audience in what capacity and what her role is?
Yeah,
maybe?
absolutely. So she is assistant coach for the entire program, both men and women.
Okay.
She kind of does essentially kind of right-hand man for everything on the daily basis. You know, whether that be for practices, booking, whatever it may be. She's kind of that person. And she's there. She serves the role, men and women. We're all kind of in it together in terms of that role. As far as collegiate bowling, as you probably know, it's kind of, okay, we have the men and they compete on, sometimes they're at different bowling centers actually, depending on which event it's at. But you know, there's a lot of different things that go on the men's side. So just for consistency, we decided that she was a good fit for the women and I was for the men. So I go with the men during tournaments about 95% of the time, and then she goes with the women about 95% of the time. But ultimately, we work together on everything on the daily
So when y'all
type
are
of
at home
basis.
practicing, both teams, both coaches, everybody's kind of in
exactly.
one loop together.
And then she takes and she has those months off for the tour, so she goes bowls the PWBA tour for the May, June. She actually goes on a recruiting event with me in July for Junior Gold, and then she goes back to the tour for the August, and then as soon as that's over, we get ready for the next season, essentially.
Another wonderful player and
Yeah.
just great human being. Is there anyone you'd like to give a personal shout out to as far as, or just a thank you as far as helping you get where you're at and be the person you've become?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of them are probably in this building. Maybe not in this room right now,
That
but
was not a setup by any means.
no, I mean, it kind of started back home, and I had the guy in the pro shop, and he kind of became like my first coach. His name is Dave Harris. He actually worked with Adele a little bit, so they knew each other because Adele actually lived in Franklin, Virginia, which is about 30 minutes from where I grew up as well. So they kind of all knew each other. And so he was kind of my first coach, and he kind of, gave me that that little bit of passion and motivation to kind of get started. And then from there, I ended up here, and the Stowe man, Randy, of course.
A lot of people give him credit. I'll tell you what, they love him to death.
He's awesome. He's awesome.
All of our coaches are wonderful.
I've learned. I always say I've learned. I think 95% of the things I know about bowling from him. So whether it be physical game, out on the lanes, when it comes to technical aspects in terms of ball fitting, drilling, layouts, all those things, is he was pretty much the guy to teach me most of it. And when I was here at Weber, even days that there was just lessons going on, whether it would be Dell or Randy or whatnot, doing them, I would sometimes just kind of sit and listen, and you just learn so much from something like that. And now with Ruben and Alex, even them, and every time I get to come down here every so often, not as much as I would like.
As much as we'd like it to, exactly.
But no, even now, I'm direct competition. It's still, I still reach out to Randy, and I'll ask him questions.
There's no competition in the studio ever. This is neutral zone. No, I've heard, and that's kind of textbook of what I hear from all those or people that have been coached or affected or instructed by, whether it was Randy, Dell, Rick, Ruben. I mean, Alex, you're just very fortunate to have a wonderful crew down there. All right, this is a part of the show where I get kind of corny.
Okay.
And I ask you got any advice for up-and-coming youth? That can be bowling, personal, youth that maybe want to be a coach. I leave that up to you.
All right. Well, this might sound generic, but I would say the one advice that most youth don't want to listen to and they don't understand is no matter how much your parents drive you crazy, they are ultimately your number one fans, and you'll figure it out later on in life how important they are in terms of making you successful. So try not to get mad at them, because I definitely know how easy it is to get frustrated with them in that regard, and that's one of the things that I know. My dad was always wanted to be so involved and wanted to know so much. I'm like, I'm not listening to you right now.
He's excited.
They want to help,
exactly.
and normally your parents are the hardest people to listen to, but ultimately they are the ones that are going to care more than anybody else, and they're just ultimately trying to make you better. And I wish I kind of realized that a little bit more so when I was younger. I learned it a lot more later on, once I got into college in that aspect. But that's definitely one of the other ones. And then in terms of coaching, ultimately I think find a mentor, somebody that kind of help you, guide you down that path. I definitely, in terms of even just how I coach and things like that, I'm always wanting to know other people's opinions on different things, because there's 5 million different ways to teach, whether it be physical game, layout,
Sure.
whatever, what in regards to ball, anything ball related. There's so many awesome people, and they have so many different experiences, and they might teach it one way and somebody teaches it in another, and ultimately when you get to go and coach different people, that one way that you might get from somebody else might work, but then you might have to have that second option. And the more you're willing to listen and research and be open to other people's opinions, I think is really important for kind of developing the way you kind of coach. It's great when you have access to some of the top coaches in the world. So if you get that and take advantage of that opportunity, if you really do, I think more so now than ever is definitely the case. I've seen, even since when I was younger, there's so many more top level coaches, and just on a local level that youth have access to. And I would say if you have the opportunity to utilize them, take advantage of it full force. Because I know that I didn't really get that opportunity as much. We had local coach and things like that, but I really grew leaps and bounds once I got here to Kegel. Sure. And the top level, and being consistently, at being coached by somebody like that. So if you have that opportunity, take advantage of it as much as possible.
Katie, I can't thank you enough for coming out and tell you how great it is to see you, and we look forward to you
I appreciate
making the journey back down, and hopefully bringing this lovely
I
group
feel
of
at
people
home.
with you.
I feel at home.
It is a pleasure to see you, my dear, and you enjoy your lunch today. Ladies, gentlemen, and children, that's a wrap. Keep those wrenches turning. Have a wonderful day.